Hey folks, if 6 months ago you told me that a pack raft was a good use of money for a backcountry hunter, I would have called bullshit. I inadvertently put this thing to the test this last elk season and had a blast with it, and I found it way more useful than I thought I would. This is an Alpacka Scout Raft. I'm gonna run you through my review of it. I'll show you some testing of it in the field on an elk hunt we did. And as a bonus towards the end of the video, I'm gonna show you how I rigged up this raft specifically for backcountry hunting and the actual application that we're gonna use it for as hunters. Some of the ways that these pack rafts are portrayed for uses in the hunting context are not really reality, but there are some uses of it that I think a lot of people probably overlook. Okay, so one of the genius parts of this whole system is how the pack raft inflates. So here you've got just a bag to inflate the raft. Unfold it here. You've got a one-way valve here. You're just gonna connect that to your valve. And there's a little technique to this, but I found it not that difficult once you get it going. Basically, get your plate bag here, and then do that. I actually find that if you hug it, you're better off. One thing that I at first tried to do, and my brother seems to do it pretty well, but I'm not good at it, is try to catch the air. It's actually just easier just to poof it up like this, and then you grab it like that, and then just current. And it's kind of goofy to watch, but you'd be amazed how effective this is. So once you get it, the bulk of it full with the system, just undo this. You don't have to worry about air coming out. So it's a one-way valve, and you're gonna store it actually where it's open, but I have it here where it's where it actually holds the air. So it's a one-way valve, and that's to the left actually, but you can just top it off with your mouth. Basically, they say just to top it off to the extent that you can with your lungs and your mouth, and that's going to be full. What I found is that, you know, when this goes into cold water, particularly if you're blowing it up and it's warm, when you put it in cold water, you're going to lose some air. At some point, you're going to have to pull over and add a little more air, but it's easy to do that just with your mouth. So that's a super easy process. Once you're good at it, I mean, I can get this thing filled up in 5 minutes or less. It's not a big deal. 5 minutes or less, and honestly, not much of a workout. It's not like it's horrible to blow it out. So here you can see the whole raft. This is actually the front of the raft here. This is the back of the raft here, which that was counterintuitive to me. I thought pointy part front, but that's actually the back. And then there's the bottom. Flipped over, and then you're going to sit on this end of the raft. So on this particular raft, I have the cargo system. I opted for that from Alpaca, and it is useful. It's handy. Basically, it's a waterproof and airtight zipper, and what you can do is you can essentially put gear inside the tunnels of the raft, and all you got to do is just put them in just, you know, ultra lightweight dry bags like this, and you can put gear in there that kind of lowers the center of gravity, which is awesome. But if you've got stuff that you're just concerned that it's going to get wet, you know, that's sensitive to that, then yeah, put it inside the raft, inside this cargo system, inside a dry bag. That's your best bet. I put a lot of gear on the front of the raft here with how I rigged up like my pack and everything, pack, rifle, all of that when I'm crossing rivers. All of this has potential to get wet just if, you know, just from a little rapid, just minor stuff, you getting in and out of the boat, you're gonna get some moisture on gear that's packed right here. And I'll show you how I do that, how I strap my pack in. I took this raft just in the bag. I hadn't even set it up. I took it on an Idaho elk hunt. I really thought, well, maybe we'll use it. You know, it's a pretty remote area. There's a couple different rivers there, a couple forks of the same river, you know, some rapids. I didn't know if we could use it or not, and sure enough, we actually used it a whole lot and we needed it. All right, so we got our plan for tomorrow for these elk, but the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna test out the PACKRAFT. We're gonna do a crossing here during the light, just as a test run, just for safety's sake and just so I can get used to the whole PACKRAFT thing. We're actually gonna go across. One guy's gonna man the rope and keep it up off the river. As the first person crosses, they're gonna get over there, get their gear off, get unloaded, and then the person on this side is gonna pull the rope back, ravel up the rope so we have it on the other side, and then take the raft over. And so two guys are gonna be able to get over there. We're gonna go up, hunt elk, hopefully come down successful, and then we'll probably have to do several trips with quarters, but that's the plan. It handles pretty good. There's actually a fair amount of water flowing here, and I can go straight upstream with it. We'll see if we can get up in this rapid. I just want to see, like, you know, once before I have weight in it, you know, how bad it's gonna get if we're exhausted and a bunch of weight and stuff, you know. So I want to kind of push it to see what I can do with it. Yeah, it's pretty good, dude. Pretty solid. So first impressions of the PACKRAFT are good. It may be a little bit different when we put some weight on it, but its maneuverability and just its ability to really maneuver like a kayak. I mean, this river's got quite a bit of flow going down it, and you can come right upstream with it. We're gonna go ahead and try it with the pack on there and give it a test that way.
Right here's a good spot, Zach. There's no rocks.
All right, guys, so in the video, you saw how we did the rigging in the field. Well, since then, I've perfected the system a little bit and used it a little bit more and tested it. That system was not perfect, and I'll kind of run you through the little problems we ran into, but it's what we had, right? We weren't anticipating using the raft that way, so I really wasn't prepared that way. Basically, we borrowed some rope from some folks that had a super remote cabin out there, and that helped us get across the river. It was about a 100-foot stretch across there at least. We needed probably 120 feet of rope, and we weren't prepared for that. But we used what we had, and we were able to do what we needed to do. But here's some suggestions. So first, you can just, right here, you can just I just have a little paracord here. This is just a good way to tie. You can just tie in a rope here if you are going to drag the raft back and forth. Essentially what we did in that video is one guy held the rope, and then he was really careful, you know, to make, you know, really manage the rope. One, don't get it wrapped around yourself if you got the guy out there in rapids or something. You know, you're gonna be jerking on him or he's gonna pull you in or anything. So manage that rope and make sure those coils are loose. The other thing is you're gonna have it tied onto the raft, right? And you're gonna have to pull it back. You want to be careful if that rope were to get away from you and it got on a log or a rock or something like that. You know, it could stick get the guy stuck who's in the raft. It could flip the raft. So the best thing to do is when you tie on here, tie on with a quick release knot, right? So the guy can let it loose, or at a bare minimum have a knife or something where at least he has a little chance that he could cut that rope if he needs to. And the other thing is you could use a carabiner too. The reality is a carabiner, once it has tension on it, it's not that easy to pull off, but hypothetically it gives a guy a chance. But just think about that when you rig up a rope for pulling the raft back and forth. So the rope we had, The problem with it is it was just a cheap kind of like ski rope almost. And the thing about those is they tangle up real bad and they're hard to handle in your hands. So they're gonna get knots in them, they're gonna get twists. And that's a real problem for this kind of stuff where you're taking the raft across and you've got line behind you and then the guy's gonna pull the raft back. You want that to be handy and easy to use, because if you get a knot in it, it can be kind of a disaster. If you're going across in the dark and the guy's feeding the rope to you and there's a knot in it and all of a sudden he can't feed you any more rope and you're halfway, through a rapid and now all of a sudden you're stuck, that might flip the boat, because you don't have control because there's tension now, right? So it's really important that you have a good rope. And so what I found the best thing to use is just a throw line, just one of these safety throw lines. One, you can hypothetically throw it across, a 30-foot, 25-foot river or something. You're gonna have no problem throwing, a 70, 80-foot throw bag across. So that'll save you having to run the line across. But the other thing is they're good ropes. They're the kind of rope that's used, in this environment. So they're easy to handle. They don't twist real bad. They're lightweight. And the other thing is you can stick a carabiner on there, so you can go to your raft that way just with the carabiner here in the middle. So I prefer that for a system where you're going to be pulling the raft back and forth. And a lot of people, particularly people who are into rafting, are to say there's better ways to do it. Well, I'm just talking about the application of hunting. I think that one of the way underestimated applications of these pack rafts is not necessarily floating a river when you're hunting. It's doing exactly what we use this for, and that's just access. Just access to drainages and spots that the only way to hunt those spots would be if you can cross the river safely in the dark, so you can get into those spots during prime hunting hours. I think that's the #1 application of these. I actually think there's much less application in terms of floating rivers as a hunter, for multiple miles and, multiple days in one of these pack rafts. I think it's just beyond most guys' skill set. And the reality is, with all of our gear and what we're doing, access points up the river and down the river, there's not a ton of opportunity to do that. So most of the time, these pack rafts are going to be used for short jaunts and for crossing rivers for access. So you want to rig them accordingly, and you want to be able to have a rope where you can run a raft back and forth, and that way you only need one raft. You don't have to have multiple rafts if you have multiple people in your party. All right, so the other thing you got to think about when you're thinking about this application of taking the raft across and then a buddy or hunting partner pulling it back so they can use it and take it across too for access points, is you've got to deal with paddles. And this is critical, right? Because you're going to need the paddle, obviously, to paddle the boat across when you first go across, but the paddle has to come back to the other person in your party. If it falls off and it goes down the river or drops to the bottom of the river or whatever, you can't get it in the dark, the other guy has no way of getting this boat back across. That's going to ruin the hunt. So it's really important you have a super secure way to deal with this paddle. The first couple of times we crossed the river, my solution was just to do kind of an epic knot on this and safety it up and make sure there's 1,000 ways it can't fall off. But that was just too annoying in the dark, to be honest. So we did a fail-safe system here. Essentially what I did was I put a carabiner here on in between here, the same spot where we were tying a rope into. And if you want to separate the two, like you want to have your paddle connection and you want to only pull the boat by this, I don't see any reason why you can't do that. In this case, technically if you're tying to this rope that goes to this point and this point, you've got 2 anchor points. If one broke out, you still have a hold of the boat. Here, hypothetically, if you broke one off, your line's going to go off and you're going to lose the boat. I really think like pulling an empty boat across, I don't see any reason why one of these would break. So what I did was just right here by the stopper here, I just did a clove hitch, okay, within the loop, right? Then came back in here, all right, and then I had just a loop on the paddle. Okay, so I could use the paddle with this loop on it and I didn't have to mess with it. And then when I was done, I would just pop the paddle on like that. And then once we do the rest of the rigging, you'll see that it was kind of a double safety system. That held the paddle, but we were also able to put it under the straps that we were strapping gear down on. Even if the raft rolled, I was convinced that the paddle was not going to leave the raft. So that's a key part of your rigging if you're using these rafts for just accessing across rivers with multiple people in your party. All right, so now I'll show you how we actually rigged gear down. So the first way we did it is we just used little bungee straps, and that's fine, but they don't really go into these real well, and they snap, and to be honest, I'm a little concerned that they're going to rub and get into your raft. So what I found works really well actually is these little Rok Straps. They're just ROK straps. These are used a ton in the motorcycle world. So they hold up to UV stuff. They're really strong, they're stretchy, and they're nice because they have a bungee on one side and they have just a normal strap on the other side you can tighten, right? So you can snug them down. And the other thing about them is the way they attach is pretty darn handy on a raft, because the flat strap through here, instead of like a metal hook or something, to me is going to cause a whole lot less wear and tear on the raft, and it's just going to lay nice and smooth. You can see here how they lay nice and flat. All right, so just to note, guys, you can for sure use like one of these NRS straps too. Same concept. They lay nice and flat in there. Same deal. You can tension them up. I just like these Rok Straps a little bit better. They're smaller, they're lighter weight, and they're plenty strong for what we're doing here on this application. But anyways, if you want to go super basic, you can get away with just one strap for a lot of applications, and for the application of having this paddle go back with the raft. Right? So we just clipped it into our carabiner there with our setup here that I already mentioned. Let's go here to our Rok Strap, snug that puppy down, boom, like that. That thing's not going anywhere, right? So if this raft flipped over, I don't think that paddle's gonna come out there with just that tension, but the reality is I've got the backup there with the carabiner and knot on the top here too, so no problems. If you just wanted to be extra safe about it, you could just tie a little safety knot in there, and you kind of have triple protection. And the same deal, really. Let's get rid of the paddle here, because generally when you have gear in the raft, you're going to be in the raft paddling. I don't recommend pulling a raft back and forth with a ton of gear in it. You do need to be able to stabilize the raft when you have gear in it. I have noticed that. Like if you get these sideways in a rapid and they're heavy, you can flip them over fairly easy. So you got to know how to maneuver them, and you got to be in them if you've got substantial gear. If it was just like one elk quarter or something, yeah, you could trolley meat back and forth, no problem. Maybe a couple elk quarters, you'd probably be okay. If you were under 100, 120 pounds of just gear down the bottom of the raft, I think, depending on what the water was like, I don't think you're gonna have a big problem, but just be careful of that. If I got my pack, I would just set my pack up in the front. All right, so what you can do with this ultra minimized rigging system is just take this strap here, your Rok Strap, and go to that side, but just run it through one of the straps on your pack. If the raft rolls over, it's got the most flotation, so you want your expensive gear attached to the raft as much as possible, right? You don't want it flinging all over the place. And that goes for just making all this tight. So you've got that strap on there. If it's just slow water, you're not gonna roll it. You can get away with this, right? You're solid. And then you could actually take your carabiner on the top and put it on a strap or whatever too on your pack. But I'll show you a more kind of in-depth rigging system that's gonna make it where we can pack a whole lot more on there, and we can secure it down really well, where I'm confident if this thing rolls, none of that gear, if you had meat on there or something, none of that's going anywhere. I'll show you that next. They don't maneuver near as well as you can imagine if you get a bunch of gear up here, but it's convenient to store gear up here, and if it's pretty mellow water, I had no problem going back and forth. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and tell you that we did one thing that we probably shouldn't have, and we actually put two guys in this raft. He's only a 200-pound guy, he's not a huge guy, but he's bigger than I am, so we had just that body weight in there, and that was tough because he was on these like late just for comfort level. These things are pretty tight, so it's not always about weight. A lot of times it's about bulk in terms of maneuverability, and having him sitting across here, it was actually fairly hard to maneuver this boat, and if I was in any whitewater at all, I would have not been comfortable. So just keep that in mind. Don't take other people with you when you're in these pack rafts. That's a safety violation, I'm sure, and I don't recommend that at all. But when you're packing gear, either use those storage containers where you keep them down in there, that storage fly that's built in these rafts, or have this stuff up here, but make sure you get it down low and tight. Don't get it over, over the sides of the raft and lopsided and that sort of thing. It matters a whole lot. You almost got to view it just like packing a mule or something. Having everything symmetric is 90% of the battle, right? If you get that right, everything else should go well. But if you get it wrong and you're doing everything else right, you still might run into problems. Okay, so what you're gonna do with your your Rok straps, you're gonna run one here, and then you've got another one you can run here. So you've got double straps there. So these side straps like this, they give you a way to cross a strap, obviously. But the other thing, in their own right, they give you another attachment point, and I'll show you that. All right, so the full setup without gear is gonna look like this. We've got our side straps, boom, here, boom, here, and then we've got a cross strap here, and we got a cross strap here. If you're using this and you don't have gear up in the front, take these two straps completely off, or at least unbuckle them, okay? So you don't want this stuff to be here, where if you were just rafting and you get your feet stuck in here and hung up, that's super dangerous situation. You know, most people, I'm not an expert rafter by any means, but one of the things that's really important is it's kind of like horses and mules and packing up in the mountains. You don't want any loops or loose ropes that are gonna get you stuck on the animal, right? And they're gonna loop around you and cinch down on you. Same thing goes with rafting. If you fall off, it's nice to have these to get a hold of, but you don't want anything that's gonna loop around you and get you caught to something, right? Your leg's gonna get in here and loop around. So these two straps that are across here, make sure you take those off, or you put them somewhere really secure, all right? Like this one here, obviously take it off. It's easy to take off. This one's in your rings, so that one you can probably just get away, you know, loosening it and just wrapping it around here. But you really want to be careful with that, just so you guys know. So, but here I'll show you how I would put gear in here if it was a pack. Super easy. I would just use the two cross straps like this. Same deal. You know, go somewhere with your straps, you know, in underneath your pack straps, so you have it actually attached, not just compressed to the raft. So do that with both of them, both your cross straps, we'll call them. Okay. You can cinch that down real snug. That's gonna keep this super solid, right? Now, if you had more complicated gear here, you could also use these side straps, right? There's all sorts of different ways you can kind of make a net with all those straps. That's the whole rigging system. I hope you find it useful. If you have any tips, guys, on your own raft setup, particularly for the application of hunting, I know there's a ton of different applications of these pack rafts, but for this niche, guys, if you're using it for hunting, I want to know what works for you. This is just what I found works good for me in the applications I've done so far, but I have a whole lot of experience ahead of me in terms of hunting with these pack rafts. So if you have any insights, rigging, using them for hunting, any of that, please leave a comment, guys. It'll be useful to me and everybody else out there who's watching. All right, guys, I hope you found that useful. This Alpacka raft is awesome. Guys, they are really expensive. I know that. You know, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know why that is. You know, maybe there's other options out there, but this one I've been really happy with. And honestly, spend the money. It just depends on the type of hunting you're doing. I know for the type of hunting that I do in the backcountry, if I get access to a couple extra drainages because I have one of these pack rafts, then it's worth it to me. It's worth $800 or it's worth $1,000 or $1,200 if I can get access to a few more drainages and have some fun while I'm doing it. So for me, these rafts are really a no-brainer, and I'm not like a guy that's just gonna pitch gear to everybody. If you found this video useful, please like it and subscribe to the channel. In the future, I'm gonna do a whole bunch more gear review videos that I hope are useful to you guys.